Good morning. Oh, what a treat to wake up to cold and gray and then snow. Yeah, yesterday I went for a walk, 4 miles with Kane. Jack can't make it that far. He's mostly he's that kind of dog. So Kane can do 4 miles and he does pretty well at it. So yesterday I went out for a walk in short sleeves, and today there's snow. So kind of disappointing, but hopefully the weather will change for the good, and it will stay for a very long time, I hope. So today we're going to read the next two chapters of Edward Tulane, and that will be chapter 22 and 23. Now, the author in chapter 22 is going to do something very advanced for a children's book. Okay? So, what the author is going to do is write a whole chapter of past events. Okay? So, if you remember in chapter 21, there was a very unfortunate accident that happened. If you remember, Bryce had collected enough money playing the harmonica and dancing Edward that he was able to go to a diner and get some food. Well, he wasn't very smart about it and ordered way too much food, and then he couldn't pay for it all. So the owner of the diner became very angry, and he ended up throwing Edward onto the floor, and Edward's face, his china face, became cracked. And, we could almost say that Edward, I don't know if we could say died, maybe. But, that's a very, very sad thought, because we all love Edward so much. And, we don't want to think that. But the last line of chapter 21 was, "And the world, Edward's world, went black." So now as we move into chapter 22, we learn what Edward thinks about as his world goes black. Sort of like his eyes are closed, and he starts to remember everything from his life so far. And then, chapter 23, we're going to learn how Bryce tries to bring Edward back from the blackness. So we go kind of deep, dark, sad, to maybe more uplifting and hopeful. Okay? So we have a picture to start 22. And this to me looks like a picture maybe of Edward's first home, which was with Abilene and her parents and Pellegrina. So let's see what Edward starts to think about after his world went black. It was dusk, and Edward was walking down a sidewalk. Now remember, this is his just thinking, okay? He was walking on his own, putting one foot in front of the other, without any assistance from anybody. He was wearing a fine suit of red silk. So think right there, in Edward's imagination, in his kind of black dream. He's dreaming of walking on his own. So it must be something that he's always thought about wanting to do. And again, he's back in his fancy clothes. He walked down the sidewalk, and then he turned onto a path that led up to a house with lighted windows. "I know this house," thought Edward. "This is Abilene's house. I am on Egypt Street." Lucy came running out the front door of the house, barking and jumping and wagging her tail. Lucy at Abilene's house? That's weird. "Down, girl," said a deep, gruff voice. Edward looked up. and there was Bull standing at the door. "Hello, Malone," said Bull. "Hello, good old rabbit." Again, Bull at Abilene's house. Edward has some pretty crazy thoughts in his black world. "We've been waiting for you." Bull swung the door wide, and Edward walked inside. Abilene was there, and Nellie, and Lawrence, and Bryce. "Susanna!" called Nellie. "Jangles!" said Bryce. "Edward!" said Abilene. She held out her arms to him. But Edward stood still. He looked around the room. What's he looking for? Think for a minute. Who would he be looking for? Of all those people that are there, the people that Edward learned to love, the people that showed him love, the path to love, who would he be looking for? Bryce says, "You searching for Sarah Ruth?" Edward nodded. "You got to go outside if you want to see Sarah Ruth," said Bryce. So they all went outside. Lucy and Bull and Nellie and Lawrence and Bryce and Abilene and Edward. "Right there," said Bryce. He pointed up at the stars. "Yep," said Lawrence. "That is the Sarah Ruth constellation." He picked Edward up and put him on his shoulder. "You can see it right there." So we remember how important the stars have been to Edward since almost the first chapter. How because he couldn't close his eyes, his favorite thing to do at night would be to look at the stars. They gave him comfort. They let him know that he was still alive. Edward felt a pang of sorrow, deep and sweet and familiar. Why did she have to be so far away? If only I had wings, he thought, I could fly to her. Out of the corner of his eye, the rabbit saw something flutter. Edward looked over his shoulder, and there they were, the most magnificent wings he had ever seen, orange and red and blue and yellow. And they were on his back. They belonged to him. They were his wings. What a wonderful night this was. He was walking on his own. He had an elegant new suit, and now he had wings. He could fly anywhere, do anything. Why had he never realized this before? His heart soared inside of him. He spread his wings and flew off Lawrence's shoulders, out of his hands and up into the nighttime sky, toward the stars, toward Sarah Ruth. "No!" shouted Abilene. "Catch him!" said Bryce. Edward flew higher. Lucy barked. "Malone!" shouted Bull. And with a terrific lunge, he grabbed hold of Edward's feet and pulled him out of the sky and wrestled him to the earth. "You can't go yet," said Bull. "Stay with us," said Abilene. Edward beat his wings, but it was no use. Bull held him firmly to the ground. "Stay with us," repeated Abilene. Edward started to cry. "I couldn't stand to lose him again," said Nellie. "Neither could I," said Abilene. "It would break my heart." Lucy bent her face to Edward's. She licked his tears away. So, because all of the people who had loved Edward pulled him down from flying to Sarah Ruth, we can kind of infer, we can kind of analyze that If Edward had reached Sarah Ruth, he most certainly would not have been fixed. He would not have been able to stay on earth and stay that loving rabbit that he had learned to be. So all of those people saved him in his mind, remember. Okay, so this did not really happen. This is all what Edward is imagining. Okay, so now we're going to go into chapter 23 and we're going to really learn who saves Edward. Okay, so this is really going to happen. So we start with a picture again. And you see Edward laying there. And I love this picture because you can actually see close how Edward's legs and arms have little like pins. Or you could almost think of them as, remember those gold brads we would use in school? And we would put things together with them so that they could move. That's almost like what they are. Okay, and we see a man, and it looks like the man is almost painting him. All right, so exceedingly well made, said the man, who was running a warm cloth over Edward's face. A work of art, I would say. A surpassingly unbelievable, dirty work of art, but art nonetheless. And dirt can be dealt with, just as your broken head has been dealt with. Edward looked into the eyes of the man. Ah, there you are, the man said. I can see that you are listening now. Your head was broken. I fixed it. I brought you back from the world of the dead. My heart, thought Edward. My heart is broken. No, no, no need to thank me, the man said. It's my job, quite literally. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Lucius Clark, doll mender. Your head, may I tell you? Will it upset you? Well, I always say the truth must be met head on. No pun intended. Your head, young sir, was in 21 pieces. 21 pieces? Edward repeated mindlessly. Lucius Clark nodded. 21, he said. All modesty aside, I must admit that a lesser doll mender, without my skills, might not have been able to rescue you. But let's not speak of what might have been. Let us speak instead of what is. You are whole. You have been pulled back from the brink of oblivion by your humble servant, Lucius Clark. And here, Lucius Clark put his hand on his chest and bowed deeply over Edward. All right, what do you think of this Lucius Clark? Maybe you can come up with a character trait for him. All right, my opinion is that I would call him, and we kind of talked about this word this year, but the word arrogant, okay? The word that means he is kind of full of himself, that he thinks he's the best. And in this case, he thinks he's the best doll mender of all. And that it was only him that could fix him. It was him that made him whole again. All right, so now think about this question. Do you agree that Edward is completely fixed and whole again? Because Lucius says, you are whole. Is he whole again? Do you agree? I can't say I do. I don't. Yeah. Lucius fixed his face. He fixed the 21 pieces that his head was in. But if we use a text detail, Edward said, "My heart," thought Edward. "My heart is broken." So if his heart is still broken, is he whole? Not in my opinion. Does Lucius know that Edward's heart is broken? He doesn't know that. Do you think Lucius would care? I don't think so. Because usually arrogant characters who think that they are the best at something don't really care about other people's feelings. They are not, remember that E word we learned? Empathetic. They don't have empathy or feeling for others. Okay. All right, just to warn you, Kane has come into the room and he's looking like he wants to start a fight with Jack. So, just to warn you. Okay. This was quite a speech to wake up to, and Edward lay on his back trying to absorb it. He was on a wooden table. He was in a room with sunshine pouring in from high windows. His head apparently had been in 21 pieces, and now was put back together into one. He was not wearing that red suit. In fact, he had no clothes on at all. He was naked again. And he did not have wings. And then he remembered. Bryce, the diner, Neil swinging him through the air. Bryce. "You're wondering perhaps about your young friend," said Lucius. "The one with the continually running nose." "Yes, he brought you here, weeping, begging for my assistance." "Put him together again," he said. "Put him together." I told him. I said, "Young sir, I am a businessman. I can put your rabbit back together again for a price. The question is,
Jack?
can you pay this price?"
Kane?
He could not.
Kane?
Of course, he didn't have money to pay for his food.
Jack?
Of course, he could not. He said that he could not.
No.
I told him then that he had two options. Only two. The first option being that he seek assistance elsewhere. Option 2 was that I would fix you to the very best of my considerable abilities, and then you would become mine. His no longer, but mine. Here, Lucius fell silent. He nodded, agreeing with himself. "Two options only," he said. And your friend chose option number 2. He gave you up so that you could be healed. Extraordinary, really. Bryce, thought Edward. Okay, now think about it. If you had something very special to you, okay, and it was broken or ruined, and you had to give it up in order to have it fixed, and for that item or person or thing to be all fixed and well again, would you give it up? It's kind of a deep question. I don't know. Lucius Clark clapped his hands together. "But no worries, my friend. No worries. I fully intend to keep up my end of the bargain. I will restore you to what I perceive to be your former glory. You shall have rabbit fur ears and a rabbit fur tail. Your whiskers will be repaired and replaced. Your eyes repainted to a bright and stunning blue. You'll be clothed in the finest of suits.
No, Jack.
And then someday,
Jack.
I will reap the return on my investment in you. All in good time. All in good time. In the doll business, we have a saying. There is real time and there is doll time. You, my fine friend, have entered doll time. So that last paragraph tells us that Lucius is all in it for the money that he can make from selling Edward. And we know that because of the word investment. Investment has to do with money. So, even though Lucius is going to fix him and probably bring Edward back to the way he was at the beginning of the book, I'm not really a fan of Lucius. I don't think he's very nice. But we've had worse characters in this book, haven't we? Yes. Yes, we have. All right. I'm going to end there for today. So next time we read, we are getting very close to the end. We're going to read chapter 24 and 25. And then we will have just 2 chapters left, 26 and 27. So we're getting very, very close to the end, okay? And as we get close to the end, I want you to really think hard about who you think showed Edward love the most, okay? And number 2, who was the worst toward Edward? The best, boys, the best toward Edward and the worst toward Edward. So, start your mind thinking about that, and I'll read the next 2 chapters next time. All right, I miss you guys, and stay warm and stay out of the yucky, wet, gross, gray snow. It's not a good snow. So, I will see you later.